I want to talk to you about the government's policy on small boats. It's very clear. They say that they want to try and stop the small boats by saying anyone who enters the UK illegally won't be able to make a claim for asylum. Would a Labour government keep that policy?
We don't think it works. I mean, we want to stop the small boats as well. It's just that we don't just want to talk tough, we actually want to take some action. And Suella Braverman has said, you know, that people are fed up with tough talk and no action. And she's right. And this legislation that they're trying to pass is very similar to the legislation they tried 9 months ago, and that didn't work. You know, like the legislation from 9 months ago, they identified 18,000 people who they said had no right to be in the UK. And in the last year, how many of them have they sent back? 21. You know, this is just rhetoric, this is posturing, and it's not a plan for stopping the small boats.
I'm just trying to work out, do you object to the government's policy purely on practical grounds, because you don't think it will work, or do you object to it on moral grounds too, on principle?
I think, first and foremost, we want to stop the small boats and we want to take action that's going to work. We think that it is wrong that the government is trying to posture. We are concerned about some of the language that they use.
I think we could agree everyone wants to stop the small boats, but the principle that if you enter the UK illegally, you shouldn't be able to claim asylum. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think our concern is that there will be, amongst those people, some people who are genuine refugees, and there will be people who are taking the mickey. And what we should be doing is making decisions, and making decisions fast. Essentially, we think that we should have a firm, fair and fast immigration and asylum system. But instead what we've got is we've got hotels clogged up, we've got them wanting to open up, you know, all kinds of camps and just lock people up in them. If you were, let's say, an interpreter for the army in Afghanistan, you know, the people who have been able to come out and get asylum have already gone. You know, the helicopters have gone, the planes have gone, people are now stuck. And they've been told by the government to make their way to Britain and claim asylum. But there isn't a way legally of coming to Britain as an Afghan now.
Well, that's so true. There is an Afghanistan resettlement.
Yeah. And it's finished. No, it's finished. It's not possible to get. I mean, OK, so even if so yes, you'd be able, once you claim it, then you can claim. But like, where do you do it and how do you do it? The government has said, make your way here. So if you did make your way here illegally and then claim through the system, I want that they go, no, sorry, you've come illegally. We can't even process your claim.
In Afghanistan, there is a legal route to claim asylum in the UK.
You cannot get from Afghanistan to the UK legally. So you have to, I mean, there aren't any flights. You can't get there. So you have to go, you have to make your own way to the UK.
But not for Afghanistan, though. There is a resettlement programme for Afghanistan.
But the government has said that people should make their way because there has been.
I accept from other countries, Syria, for example, Iran, Iraq. But for Afghanistan, there is. You can argue about the figures and the fact that very few people have come under it. But there is a route.
A large number of people came. Right, a large number of people came, but then there was a cut-off, and now, I mean, I have a constituent who went back to get his wife and now can't get back to Britain because there aren't any flights, and so he's having to take her, you know, over into Pakistan, and then was hoping to try to get the two of them into the UK. But whether they're able to get out of Afghanistan into Pakistan is a big question, you know, particularly given that he has a British passport. I mean, the whole thing is really very difficult, and you slip into, you know, illegally travelling very easily, very quickly, in order to try to get asylum, which is what people are doing. Anyway, this is a long aside. The point is this, right, is that there will be people amongst those who are arriving in small boats who are genuine refugees. And the government's policy now will be, we don't care, you've come illegally, we will put you into a camp and you will have no rights and we will, well, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, because they can't send anybody back anywhere. So what are they going to do with all these people? And they don't answer that. What they should be working on is they should be working on a system whereby they can return people and coming up with some agreements with other countries.
Which is what they say they are doing.
Well, they're not. You know, I mean, Priti Patel was banned from France, if you remember, because of the remarks that she'd made. They were having discussions and they said, well, we're not going to have your Home Secretary. They have, you know, the broken immigration and asylum system is the fault of the government. And the government have been in power for 13 years and they have broken it.
Gary Lineker, the football presenter, has criticised the policy as immeasurably cruel. Do you think it's appropriate for someone who works at the BBC, who accepts money from the licensed pair, to use their platform to make political statements?
Look, I know that Gary Lineker feels very strongly about this issue, and he has he's brought refugees into his home. He campaigns on this issue. I think some of the language that Gary Lineker has used in the last 24 hours has been really very unfortunate, and I wouldn't have used some of the...
You're talking about the comparison to Germany in the 1930s.
Nazis. Yeah, I just think that there is a special place in hell for the Nazis and for the Holocaust. I don't think that you should be making comparisons. So I wouldn't have said that. I think that he went too far. But what the BBC does about it is, frankly, not my business. It's not for me to tell the BBC what they do. It'll be up to them if they want to do anything about it. But otherwise, I'm sure he will continue to say what he thinks.
Yeah, it certainly seems that he does intend to do that. I want to talk to you a little bit about anti-Semitism, because Luciana Berger returned to the Labour Party 4 years after stepping down, accusing the party of anti-Semitism under Jeremy Corbyn. Keir Starmer apologised for what he described as her intolerable and unacceptable experience. Do you agree that she had an unacceptable experience?
Yeah.
I just wonder, because obviously both you and Keir Starmer were in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet. You know, you stood by him, you campaigned for him, you tried to get him elected. You also said at the time that you didn't believe that Jeremy Corbyn was anti-Semitic. Do you think that by being in that shadow cabinet, you were part of the problem?
No, I don't. I think that, I remember both Keir and I were constantly pushing, to make sure that we adopted the international definition of anti-Semitism. I know that both of us pushed that, and I know that behind the scenes we campaigned on it. We did everything we could to ensure, and eventually succeeded in making sure that the Labour Party accepted that was the standard. We raised the issue frequently in Shadow Cabinet, and we don't normally talk about what happens in Shadow Cabinet, but, I think that enough time has gone by to be able to tell you that. It's, he knows, and I know that he did too, that the two of us would raise it frequently and make sure that we kept pushing it. We kept saying, what's happened to the disciplinary process? We want to have a report. When are we going to have a report? All of these things happened, and making sure that we continue to push it was a very important part.
If you felt like that...
Yes.
Why did you then campaign for Jeremy Corbyn to become Prime Minister? Wouldn't that be a red line for you? I think that it was right for us to be pushing that, and I think that it was right for us to try to ensure that the party was dealt with that problem. We did fail, but we did try. I think that a Labour government is always better than a Conservative government. I believe that to the bottom of my soul. That I think that a Labour government is better. I think that the way Jeremy led Even an anti-Semitic one?
The way that Jeremy led the Labour Party was one whereby he gave us quite a lot of freedom to be able to develop our own briefs. And I was Shadow Foreign Secretary at the time, and I don't believe that anyone can say that our foreign policy was in any way anti-Semitic. And I made a speech at a Labour Party conference. And there had been before me somebody speaking about the Palestinian cause, and to a sea of Palestinian flags, I said that there were people who criticised Israel in a way that cloaked their deeply felt anti-Semitism, and that was a scourge, and that we had to do something about it, and we must root it out of the Labour Party. And I got a standing ovation, because the vast majority of people in the Labour Party identified that there was a problem and wanted it to be dealt with.
I am keen, as today is International Women's Day, to talk to you a bit about that, just to end the interview as well. Is there one issue? The thing is, there's so many issues, aren't there, that you could decide to pick. But I just wonder if there's one issue that you feel strongly about, that's personal to you, that you think we should be focusing on today.
Well, yeah, there are lots. That's the trouble. So I think violence against women and girls is a really important issue. I think that it impinges on all our lives, and it intimidates us and limits what we can do because of the fear. But I also think that, 50 years after the Equal Pay Act, we still don't have equal pay. How can it be that women still get 80% of the pay that men get? This is a fact. Women working full-time, we're still getting 80%. Why is that? And it's partly, I think, because, when Barbara Castle first introduced the legislation, it was like, if two people are doing the same job, then they should both be paid the same. And that was kind of simple. But we've now got into much more complex areas. So we've got things like the jobs may be slightly different, but and therefore are paid differently. And of course, it's always the man who's paid more. There's secrecy around the amount of money that people are paid. It's really difficult to take your case to a tribunal. It's very difficult to kind of say, you know, my job is the same or similar to this person's job, and to get a comparison.
And also how we value
difficult.
classic women's work as well.
And
right?
then there is the difference in, so, you know, we saw this during the pandemic, didn't we? We saw, actually, I think it gave us an opportunity to look again at what jobs we really value. Who are the real core workers? Who are the core employees? And very often they are women doing caring roles, but they are the ones who are paid the least.
Yeah. Have you ever felt that you've been paid unequally in your career?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, I think there have been times when I have not been paid the same.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Name any names?
So. No, I mean, I think that there were times when I would do when I was a lawyer, there was certain work that I would be pushed towards that would be paid less than the work that men on the whole did. And then I started doing it, and I turned up and I would be the only one doing, so fraud cases, for example. I used to be the only woman ever doing fraud cases, and they were paid much better than the other type of criminal defence work that I was doing. And, you know, there were all these guys in double-breasted suits and me. And that was unusual, you know, but they had kind of cornered the market. Although we were all doing criminal defence work, you know, there were certain parts of crime that men would do and women wouldn't.
Really interesting. And thanks very much for coming on the programme today. Thank you.
Not at all.